Ableton Live 12 is now out. I've been using the beta version for a few months and I want to show you how I've adapted my workflow to utilize the new tools in Live 12. As you'll see, there are some things they haven't quite got right yet in my opinion, but there are some tools which I absolutely love. And if you're new to music production, you can get my new producer starter pack completely free below this video. It's got some worksheets to help you with composition, some free samples, and some free project files for you to dig into and get to understand music production. Okay, without further ado, let's hop into Live 12 and get it done. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the much vaunted new browser in Ableton 12. So some of it works much in the same way as the browser from Ableton 11. You can drag and drop your particular plugins or devices into there, which is super helpful. But the main thing about this browser is that you have got this filter system here. Now, to be honest, it takes up a lot of space, but you can right click and hide the different parameters if you don't want to search by those, which is kind of cool. But the biggest issue for me is they've taken away the folder groupings here. So you would have the folder that said color, and then within that you would have your devices that would affect the color, then you would have one for dynamics, etc, etc. Now you can get around that by hitting this edit button and creating your own tags. So you could have color, you could have dynamics, you could have reverbs, and then you can assign those tags to your different instruments and devices. So I know over time this will actually become more powerful for me. But the biggest power this will bring for me personally is being able to tag my samples. Now this will be a huge job for sure, but if we go to my kicks, for example, I can actually tag those by genre and I can create the genre name. So I've created one for trance, I could create one for melodic house. And then I can tag these different kicks by these different tags. So say this black coffee kick could be for melodic house, but I also might use it in trance. I mean, I wouldn't, but I could. And then when I'm searching for my kicks, I can actually say, okay, well, I just want to go straight to the kicks I know are going to work for melodic house. Boom. And there you go. Now, for anyone who's taken any of my courses, you'll know I am a huge stickler for fast workflow. So I know that once I invest my time in tagging and categorizing my samples, I'm going to be able to work way quicker. So I'm excited about that. So the browser for me does get a boss mode rating, but I think it could be better if you could also categorize things in the folders that they had before. Now there are a few layout details as well, or layout changes, the most noticeable of which is being able to view the mixer in your arrangement view. So you can listen to your track and make tweaks as well. Now for me, I'm not sure I'm going to use this that much just because I'm so used to, after years, just being able to switch between the two views using tab, but I know for some people they're going to find this really useful. So for me, this gets a middle management level. Okay, now for the fun stuff, let's get on to the composition, and there are a few really cool tools here. I absolutely love the scale feature in the last version of Ableton, but what we've got here now is a global scale feature. So instead of having to make sure that you get the same scale in all of your different clips, you can just select it up here and it's going to show it in all of your clips. For example, if we change this E minor scale to F minor, we can see here it's changed our scale template. So that's going to make it really easy for composing. Now we're going to touch more upon that in a couple of minutes because it factors into the actual sound design as well. But first, let's look at the MIDI controls. Now there's too much to go into as to what's available, but I'll show you a couple of the things that I really like. So first I'm going to record some chords playing. I'm just going to activate MIDI and then I'm going to play some chords. So let's hit record. Okay, so we have now recorded it. Let's go in there. And as usual, with the previous versions of Ableton, you can quantize this, and that means bringing it back so it's exactly on the grid. Now, the difference in Ableton 12 is if we select them all and we hit the quantize shortcut, it opens up this little tab here, and it's just so quick and easy to decide how much you want that to be quantized, as in how much do you want it to be brought exactly on the grid. And it's non-destructive as well, so we can actually tweak that as we listen. If you want to leave a little bit of that human discrepancy in playing in there. And as I said, this just makes it way easier to make small tweaks to your quantizing that aren't destructive. Okay, the next cool MIDI tools available were available as well in previous versions of Ableton, but the one I like most is the velocity randomization. So we've got our chords, and much like the amount of quantization, we can randomize the velocity of the notes as well, and that's going to give it a more human feel, as each note's being hit at a slightly different hardness. which is cool. And we've got this deviation control as well, which means every time it plays through, there's going to be deviation within that range of how that velocity hits. Now, there is the chance setting as well, where you can actually change the likelihood of that note being played, but for most situations, I don't find this particularly useful. So if there's a 100% chance of it being played, the note's going to get played every time, but if there's not, then it's going to get dropped out now and again. Now, you might want that for some styles of music and to add some human feeling to it, but I haven't found it particularly useful. What I do love, however, that is only available from Live 12 onwards, is this ramp feature. So if we've got a snare roll in our track like so, it could be a bit finicky before to try and get a nice smooth ramp, but you've got this feature now in 12, let's just turn off the chance, where you can use ramp like so, and you can put what you want the top level to be. So we could put the full velocity, or we could put it to 100 and then just tweak the bottom like this, and it makes it way quicker for just getting that nice velocity curve. So we can do this. Love that. Now, as I said, there are other MIDI tools available in Live 12, including MIDI generation. Now, I haven't played with this too much, but you can basically create MIDI from scratch by selecting different parameters, hitting generate, and if you've got the right scale selected, as in your global scale, it's going to create some interesting ideas. You can do chords that way as well, and you can also have some arpeggiation. Craziness. So as I said, I'm yet to dig into this, but I can see it being a pretty cool tool for coming up with some ideas that you couldn't really conceive of. Now, before we get into the exciting sound design capabilities of Live 12, let me know below this video if there's anything you see that you want me to do an in-depth specific video on, and I shall do my best to make it happen. Okay, so in terms of sound design, there's this really cool synth called Meld that has just been released in Live 12. And this allows you to have two different oscillators, but there are so many cool waveforms within the oscillators, and that's what makes it so fun and unique. So I'm going to choose basic shapes, and then you can blend between the different waveforms. So we've got square wave, saw wave, sine wave, and triangle wave. So let's have a listen to that and do something with this. And you've got these really cool swarm waveforms as well, which I absolutely love. And this is what I wanted to touch upon earlier. This global scale function up here actually does way more than just allow you to program in a particular key or scale as we had with previous versions of Ableton. It's now baked into the sound design itself, but you have to make sure to hit this button, and then it's going to take that into consideration. Now, depending on which waveform you've got selected, the controls here will change and the effect that they have on the sound will change. But if you select the dual basic shapes, you've got this detune function. And if you've got this little button selected here, it's going to tie it to the key of your track. So any detuning is locked into the key of the track, which I think is really cool. Now, I really like Meld from what I've used so far, particularly for the waveforms, but then you've also got these incredible filters on there as well. Really interesting effects that you can create with them. Just a lot of options. Here's another example of a sound in Meld, and I've just got the filters set up. One to be a phaser, which sounds sweet. I mean, listen to this with everything playing as well. And just imagine assigning that to an LFO or an envelope. So cool. Now, probably my favorite feature of Ableton Live 12, and you would have seen other videos about this maybe, is an audio effect, and it is called raw. Raw as in rah. It's a saturator and distortion effect, but it's multi-band. So this actually competes with FabFilter Saturn, and I'm going to end up using this a lot. So let's listen to this arpeggio. This is really cool as well, the arpeggiator. Check it out. Let's just turn that off. Anyway, I digress. Let's use raw on this. So we can hit the drive as you would normally expect. Already sounds amazing. But if we choose multiband, we can open it up and then you can choose to distort the different frequency ranges separately, independently from each other. Now this is amazing, it sounds great, but you've got other controls as well, or other options. You've got multiband, you've got serial, whereby it's going to go into one saturation unit and then a second saturation unit. You can choose parallel, where it's going to send the signal to two separate saturation units before summing them back together. And this is probably the most powerful saturation plugin I've ever used, and the fact it's native to Ableton, I absolutely love. Just sounds amazing. Listen to the difference. So nice. Now I've got so much more experimentation to do with the features in Live 12. From my personal perspective, I know that there are going to be some teething issues when I start using this all the time instead of Ableton 11, but I also know that once I get used to this slightly new workflow, I'll be working faster and I'll be creating better music. If you want to know how to actually write your first track in Ableton, you can check out this video I'm posting right here, which is going to show you how to set up your project, how to load in different instruments, and how to actually compose your first track from scratch. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you over at that next video.